I was thinking of starting from the beginning when you started writing.
Oh, okay.
You went to a workshop called Clarion West. Do you think that was an important part of you becoming a writer?
Yes, very much so. It was the first time that I went anywhere where I was taken so seriously for a start, and I met lots of people who were also in the same position, and we bonded together and formed this closely knit group of friends, and the workshop lasted for 6 weeks. We were taught by professionals, a different one every week, and it was really intoxicating. It was there hasn't been a time since, in fact, since then, that I've had so much attention given to my work critically, and it was brilliant. Yeah.
And your earlier novels has been published again in American editions.
That's right.
Yeah. How do you feel about your, let's say, your two first books, Mappa Mundi and Silver Screen, today?
I still like them. I think maybe they're a little bit dated in some ways, but I'm still quite pleased with them. I think if I wrote them now, I might be able to do a better job, but they wouldn't be the same. So, yeah, I'm still very fond of them, very much so. I was thinking, I haven't written books like that since, really, but I might do again.
Looking forward to it. I like
it. Thank you.
I was thinking both Silver Screen and Natural History raises questions about machine intelligence and their rights. What's your thought about that?
I used to be much more optimistic about artificial intelligence than I am right now. I thought at the time when I was writing Silver Screen, it seemed like it was something that might almost be possible, or at least possible to reasonably fake. But now that I've learned more about what really goes on in AI research, I'm not convinced that a machine, at least in our lifetimes, possibly ever, is going to come up with the same kind of conscious self-awareness as a human being. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong, but that's just my feeling at the moment. So that's kind of disappointing, because I was sort of looking forward to that. And because I didn't think it would turn out like the Terminator movies myself. But yeah, it's not quite the dream it used to be for me.
You don't believe in Vernor Vinge's dates about
the singularity?
The singularity.
Oh, I'd like to. Part of me would be fascinated to encounter something like that. I mean, who wouldn't be to ask it what it thought and felt, even if those were questions that it could answer? But as I kept writing about that sort of stuff, I realized the only things I could come up with imaginatively were basically analogues of human beings. And in writing Silver Screen, I wanted to try and put across that probably a real machine intelligence wouldn't be anything like a human being unless we designed it to be like one. And but because of that, it makes it impossible to write about, because it's the unimaginable thing. So, but it was still fun to deal with.
Still fun to write about it.
Yeah, very much so. It had to be able to fake human sufficiently to interact with them. And I think that would still have to happen. Otherwise, it would be a meaningless experience.
Yeah. Most of your books has been quite diverse in terms of subgenre, or whatever you call it. Just one real space opera. Yeah.
You mean that Natural History is the only real space opera, isn't it? Yeah. I like space opera very much, but it's the only idea I had that I felt really worked out in space, in a kind of spaceship and solar system exploring way. And I'm working on one now, which I hope is going to be a much more far future Ian Banksian kind of vast civilization somewhere galaxy spanning, although that's becoming less popular at the moment, I think. Not for readers necessarily, but a lot of writers. There's a in hard science fiction, there's this feeling that, we're not going We're not going to the galaxy. We're not going to the stars. Everything feels small. At least that's the impression I get. So, but it was only ever an adventure story anyway. So, but for me, when I was small, at least, I really thought that these things were genuine, possible futures, which is possibly says more about me than the stories. But now I've come to an age where I realise it's not going to happen. So that's a bit sad, really. But I'd still like to write one.
Yeah, it's like the Dick novels where we have our personal spaceships in the end of the 90s.
Yeah, how wonderful that would be.
Yeah.
Probably.
I still want mine.
Yeah, it would be great.
Then after natural history and your neighbor to God, you changed tack a bit and started writing the quantum gravity series.
Yeah.
How come?
I wanted a change, really. The previous books that I had written had all been they were serious in intent, and I felt they were full of ideas that I really had to wrestle with in quite an intense way. I wanted something more light-hearted and fun, just for a change, just so that when I was working on it, I didn't feel quite so stressed, I suppose. And so I tried to do something that was much more vigorous and shamelessly called on all kinds of aspects that I hadn't been able to include before, so that you can have fairies and demons as well as high-tech androids and robots and spaceships even, although we never got to the spaceships part. I was going to, but it never got to the spaceships because everything else became too complicated. But it could have gone there.
How did you feel about writing a series? All your other novels were on their own.
When I thought about it, I really wanted to write more than one of them, because I felt like there was a lot of opportunity in that universe to explore different things and to tell different kinds of stories, even though I wanted to keep the same character set going through the middle of it. So it was quite a challenge, but in a way it was more peaceful, because every time you finished a standalone book, it's completely the end of that world, pretty much, and then you have to totally reinvent and start a new one, whereas this one, a lot of the architecture's already been done by the end of book one, so it's a more relaxing experience, I think, than trying to do one on its own from nothing.
Yeah, but you have to have more of control of what's happened several books back, and
yeah, I didn't think about that too much.
Tie up all the loose ends in the end.
Yeah, that's harder than you think. Especially when by the time you're writing the last one, you've almost forgotten the first one. Well, I did, so I have to keep lots of notes and go back and read them again and again to try and figure out what had to be said. But it was just, I really enjoyed writing those. I thought they were great because they had this big fantasy element to them that meant I didn't have to stick to what I think of as hardcore realism all the time. You could draw in all kinds of elements. It made it a more creative experience for me. So I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah. Did you have any special sources of inspiration for the Quantum series?
Ooh, lots of different things. All the fairy tales of my childhood. My love of the Transformers, which I was talking to a friend the other day, and she said, gosh, they're such a boy thing. I always hated those. I can't think of any woman who would ever like them. We were talking about the movie, you see. And I said, oh, but I could just watch it endlessly. It doesn't matter to me if it's a rubbish plot or anything. It's just so much fun watching things turn into cars and back again. And she looked at me like I was mental, so I realised that might be an acquired taste. But it was things like that, and being able to bring it all together, it's just basically a mashup of all the things I was a fan of when I was a teenager.
Yeah, and you are one of the very few female writers in science fiction. Any thoughts about that?
Oh, there's been a huge debate going on lately. I'm sure you must have seen it between lots of people about where are the women in science fiction and why aren't they on this list and why aren't they on that anthology. And I think, after wading through all of it, it's very difficult to say why there aren't more women writing science fiction. I don't know what they're doing instead. I do know that some of the things that have happened and the fact that we are not being published as much is slightly down to not producing as many books. There seem to be a lot of factors from the industry as a whole ranged against us at the moment, but not us particularly. It's getting very tough for writers in general.
Yeah.
But as to the bias as a whole, I keep coming across every time I have been to. I went to the Hay on Wye Literary Festival. It's England's largest literary festival last month. As an adjunct to it, they have a philosophy festival and music running at the same time. And I met a young man there who was totally enthusiastic about science fiction. And I said, well, why don't you promote it to your girlfriends more? And he said, they don't want that because they always go for a book that's much more touchy-feely and about relationships. And I looked at him thinking, you can't still be saying this. That might have been true in the 1950s. Surely it's not true now. But he was completely serious, and then he went on to tell me that what he loved about science fiction were precisely all those things weren't in it. That it wasn't full of, we call it girl cooties, romance, relationships, difficulty, internal conflicts of one kind or another. But I mean, this is the kind of thing that crops up all the time, and I was totally astonished when he said it, because he was obviously a graduate of one of our finest universities, and he was at a philosophy festival, so clearly a thinker. And yet there was that attitude. I mean, I don't think he even realizes how dismissive that attitude is, not just of women and their writing, but of men, all the men who are writing science fiction, which is full of wonderful human insights and deep relationships and all kinds of interesting stuff. So I think it's really that old attitude about science fiction that's causing the trouble. And I don't know whether it's unconscious or conscious, but not a lot of consciousness going on in some quarters, I will say.
Obviously. Sounds like old habits die hard.
Very hard, yes.
Yes. And you mentioned a bit about your next book. Could you tell us more about your future projects?
Well, I've got 2 on the boil at the moment. I don't know what's going to happen to them because I don't have a contract right now. So I'm going to write them to their conclusions and then see. I'm working on a novel which is, I think, for older teenagers, possibly. I want to say young adult, but it's not as young as Harry Potter. It's the old end of Harry Potter. Based on a short story which I once wrote called The Girl Hero's Mirror Says He's Not the One. Which is about a society in which everybody is wired in, and the government is slightly wired into you as well, so that when you have impulses to do bad, uncivilized things to each other, there's a sort of trip switch that goes off that redirects you down a more creative and fulfilling path. And it's about a girl who is broken out of that system, and she has to decide whether she endorses it or whether she wants to rebel and do something different instead. So that's one. And the other one is that vast future, strange aliens on a different planet. I think it might be about the gender wars, that book, actually. I wanted to put women in charge, so I was trying to figure out biologically, for our species at least, what would have to happen for the history of the world to have been different, so that women came out politically and economically on top of things, much more so than they ever have. That's led me down an enormous research path, which has been very, very strange. Because ideologically it's difficult to go down it, People are saying, it shouldn't matter about your biology and your relative strength and, the necessities of reproduction, but it does. All of those things have a huge part to play in it. So I'm messing around with that and having fun.
The first one, is there any exact dates or something for that?
No, because I don't have a contract, so it doesn't matter when I finish it. It's up to me. If I want some more money, I'll have to do it a bit quicker. So it's a question of how long I can hold out. It's about halfway through now, so a few more months, and then I'll try to sell that.
We'll hope for the best.
Oh, thank you very much.
Sounds like something I want to read, at least.
Oh, well, good. Hooray.
So, is there anyone else who has a question for Justina? Please.
Hi, yeah, you can see me.
I can
hi, I'm
see you.
Stefan.
Hello.
You mentioned, or rather, you were forced to mention that you went to Clarion West.
Yes.
Do you give writers' workshops now as an established writer?
I have done. I haven't been to Clarion, but I've done a few in the UK. There's an organisation called the Arvon Foundation, which runs writers' workshops all year round, and they usually last just a week. And I've taught science fiction on those 3 times, I think, with Adam Roberts, who's a British science fiction writer from London. And we had, yeah.
And what I'm curious about, do you teach the same things that were taught to you at Clarion? Oh, sorry, Clarion West?
Oh, no, probably not. Partly it's because of the format of the workshop. And of course, some of the things I would pass on, some of the things that I thought were good advice and good techniques. I have found I found Clarion to be slightly cookie cutter in its approach, in that it tended to, the experience was wonderful, but also it had a tendency to make people play it safe with their writing a bit, because there was this kind of how to do it, that there is a sense of how to write something, and we were all learning the craft very much. But because we're focusing very much on that, we some of us lost our way slightly with the other creative side of it. There was a sort of prescriptive feel about things. I don't know if I'm saying this very well. Whereas on the courses where I'm doing it, because they were smaller and because they were a little easier for us to get to know the students, we decided between the two of us that we would try and get to know each person a little bit and sort of tailor things toward them individually, because everyone's at very different stages. So a different format. But writing advice is always the same. Once you've got the basic craft of things down, it's just a question of practice, really.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know if anyone else has got a question. In that case, I will hand back to Glenn.
Thanks.
Well, thank you very much for participating in our... we have one more question here.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi there. I can see you. Hi.
I haven't actually read any of your books.
Oh, okay.
But I just think it's interesting to ask people, if you could have a T-shirt with a slogan, what would it be?
Ooh. I've seen this T-shirt, actually. It's not original to me. I always liked the one that said "Death to all extremists" on it. Although that, it does invite trouble somewhat. But yes, that's my favourite so far.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Nobody else? Well then, thank you very much, Justina.
Oh, thanks very
nice
much. Thank you, Glenn. And I'm sorry about the camera. I didn't realise it was meant to be a video call, because I'm such a dinosaur that I don't usually use Skype. I didn't even know it did video calls.
Well, my experience is that most science fiction writers enjoy fantasizing about the future, but new technology, that's a bit scary.
That's quite right, yes. I shall have to learn, though. I will. But at least this way I get to look better, though.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. And
now we'll sell a lot of your books.
Yay, have a lovely day. Take care now.
You.
Bye.
Bye.